You see, I am a simple college student living alone in an apartment. I was very enthusiastic about the release of Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver here in the States. I have purposely locked myself out of all media on the internet aside from school purposes. That means no 4chan, no V, no Bulbapedia, etc. As I was busy with the school year and being poor at the time, I wasn't able to buy Soul Silver on its launch date. After my school year ended, I ordered Soul Silver on Amazon. However, it would take a week for it to arrive, though, so I decided that during the time, I would replay my Crystal version on my Game Boy Color. However, I realized not long ago my mom threw it away because I told her the save went dead, and I was very upset about it then. She also threw away my Silver version, so all I had was my Game Boy Color. As such, I set out to GameStop and bought a used Silver version, as it's the only Pokemon game they have for the Game Boy Color. $10, fairly cheap considering it was GameStop. I went home and started up for a nostalgia trip. However, that's where things started getting bizarre, and most likely the reason why you're reading this. The Game Freak logo started up as normal, but it just froze there. I thought the cartridge was just aired or something, so I turned it off and on again. Same thing happened. I tried pressing A and start over and over and all of the buttons. Eventually the logo vanished and there was a black screen for about 5 seconds. Suddenly, rather than just going to the usual menu screen, I was already in the game in a previous save file, which was odd as I was expecting all of these cartridges to have been wiped by the poor battery. Either way, I wasn't complaining, as I would have chosen the continue option to see what the previous guy did anyways. First off, I checked his trainer information. His name was just ... He didn't have much originality. I checked his profile, and apparently he had 99999 hours put into the game, with all 16 badges, 99999.9 Pokédollars, and all 251 Pokemon in the Pokédex. Seeing as he had Mew and Celebi logged also, I'm guessing he either used a Game Genie or was a really hardcore Pokemon player back then. I checked his Pokemon to see what badass team he had. To my surprise, I saw 5 unknowns and a 6th Pokemon named Hurry. I'm thinking this must be some cruel joke by the person who last played the game, but I decided to check the profiles of those Pokemon anyway. As expected, they were different letters of unknown, all level 5. I was a bit shaky with my unknown alphabet at the time, but I identified the word spelled out to be leave. As for the 6th Pokemon, it turned out to be a Cyndaquil. Mind you, this was before they were individualized Pokemon icons. The Cyndaquil looked normal, but it was level 5 with only 1 HP left, with only 2 attacks, Leer and Flash. I don't know why they named him Hurry, but at the time I just disregarded it. The most eerie thing was that despite my volume being at max, none of the Pokemon had said their usual cries, just pure silence. Having enough of the team, I closed it. I was part of what appeared to be a room inside Bellsprout Tower. However, for some reason there were no NPCs around. Even more eerie was that the pillar in the middle didn't move at all, as if it's just leaning on its side. There was no music at all, and there was no exit or ladder. At least, I thought there wasn't. I walked around for a few minutes, but couldn't seem to find a way out. This was certainly not a room I've seen in the Bellsprout Tower before. I tried checking my items for an escape rope, but the bag was completely empty. There wasn't any wild Pokemon either. Finally, I managed to find a ladder, which turned out to be behind the pillar. The screen turned black, and the music finally started playing. I felt a sudden chill as I recognized the melody. I heard the theme. The theme I heard was the theme you hear when you listen to the radio at the Alph Ruins where the Unknown are at. I immediately realized that it wasn't a loading transition, but rather I was in a dark room and would need flash. Before I took care of that though, I immediately checked my Pokegear to change the radio to something more pleasant, but it turns out there was no radio card, or even a phone nor time card. There was only a map card in which Gold, ... from earlier, and I'll call him Gold from now on, was just in a midst of black. I recall that Cyndaquil had flash, so I turned off my Pokegear and made Cyndaquil use flash. I didn't see any message saying Hurry had used flash, or anything like that. The room just lit just like that. and I soon regretted it. The room was a chilling blood red, with a linear grey path heading south. The ladder I used to go up and down was not there at all. I had no choice but to head south. The screen got darker every 20 steps I made, until I finally made it to the end, which appeared to be a sign. I read the sign which said, "Turn back now." Suddenly I was asked to answer yes or no, but there was no question asked. I chose yes, as I did not know what it was asking, and the screen went black again, making a ladder climbing sound. The unknown radio music stopped, and in a few seconds was replaced with the not as creepy Pokeflute radio music. I was in another dark room, but I held my breath and used flash again. Suddenly it said that Harry had fainted, which was odd seeing as I recalled there was no status condition like poison on him, and I clearly wasn't in a battle. I checked my Pokemon quickly, and suddenly he's no longer in my party. In fact, after a bit of investigating, none of my Pokemon were there, but instead all replaced with level 10 unknown. I did the same thing as before and spelt out the unknown. My then team of unknowns spelt, "He died." Either way, after that creepy change, the room was lit to reveal myself in a very small room that appeared to be only 4 squares big. The walls of that room were grey bricks, as if I was inside something that was hollowed out. Outside the room appeared to be a bunch of graves similar to the ones in Pokemon Red and Blue. I walked around that small room and pressed A, but nothing happened. I already concluded that this was clearly a hacked game and some sadistic fuck sold it to GameStop. However, my curiosity kept me going. I checked the trainer profile of ... again, only to find out that the sprite of Gold was missing his arms. He also seemed to appear less smug, but rather seemed more sad and empty in a way that I do not know how to describe. For some reason, also now said he had 24 badges, which was clearly impossible. After a few minutes of aimlessly wandering, my character suddenly spun and did the escape rope spinning animation. Instead of flying up though, my character spun downwards slowly, as if sinking. After that screen, the music stopped. After finally landing, the overworld sprite of Gold is coloured differently now. Instead of the usual red colour he dons, he appeared completely white now, including his skin. It's as if he came straight from the colourless Game Boy games, placed in a coloured background of the Game Boy Color. I checked his profile and now, his body was now as white as his overworld sprite. He lost his legs and has what appeared to be bloody tears from his eyes. It also says he now has 32 badges, which now started to disturb me as this change of number seemed to represent something important. I also checked my Pokemon, which this time contained 5 unknowns and a level 100 Celebi without a nickname. The unknown are this time level 15 and spelt out dying. I checked the Celebi's profile. It was a shiny Celebi, except there's only half of the sprite. 1 leg, 1 arm, 1 eye. It only had 1 attack. Perish Song. The area I was in itself was the Sprout Tower with the immobile pillars before, except everything is apparently red now. I walked north for what felt like forever. Eventually I finally encountered some generic men and women NPCs. They were all lined up to the side, just facing the long slantish pillar in the middle. They were also white, and nothing happened when I tried to speak to them. I kept going north until eventually the pillar finally appeared chopped off, with a transparent red in that spot. I went up to red and, without even pressing A, I was suddenly engaged and finally in a battle. The music started again, which sounds like the unknown radio music again, and played backwards. Gold's battle back sprite matches his front one with bloody eyes, white skin, and lack of arms, while red sprite was the same as before in Gold's in the regular games, except transparent. The text simply said, "Wants to battle," as if he had no name, and both of us only having 1 Pokemon each, which is weird as I swore I had 6 with the unknowns. My shiny Celebi came out, conveniently with half the sprite from the back also. The shiny noise and animation was different, as the sounds it made sounded like multiple screech attacks used consecutively. Red sent out a seemingly normal male Pikachu, except he is level 255 and his sprite seemed sad and had tears in his eyes. Rather than use fight, item, Pokemon and run menu, I was only given the option to use the attacks. Since Celebi only had one, I chose it. Naturally, since Pikachu was level 255, he went first. Pikachu used Curse, lowering his speed and increasing his other stats. I'm not even sure if Pikachu could use Curse. Celebi used Perish Song. In 3 turns, both Pokemon get KO'd, not like I have a choice. At this point, I didn't even go back to the fight menu, as the battle just continued without me. Also, there was no animations at all for some reason. Pikachu used Flail, which didn't do much despite his level and boost as his health was maxed. Celebi used Perish Song. Nothing happened as it was already used. Pikachu used Frustration, which did a shit ton of damage, knocking Celebi down to less than 10 HP. Celebi used Pain Split, which surprised me as Celebi didn't even have that attack in the first place. Now Celebi and Pikachu had around 150 HP. Pikachu used Mean Look. Not like that did anything. As expected, due to the effects of Perish Song, my Celebi fainted, except in the text it said, Celebi has died, and instead of the ordinary drop-off animation, the Celebi back sprite just vanished. For some reason, the Pikachu was still up even with the Perish Song, and it didn't count as my loss. Pikachu used one more different attack, beyond the 4 attack limit. Pikachu used Destiny Bond. Afterwards it said Pikachu has died, with a slow fade out animation. Apparently I was the winner, and as the transparent red sprite showed up and said ... At that point I just freaked out as the transparent red sprite was suddenly beheaded, leaving nothing but his transparent body. The battle then ended at that point and faded out along with the music. I'm back in the overworld with another change to Gold Sprite. He's now as transparent as Red's overworld sprite. I quickly checked Gold's profile, where this time the only thing remains of him is his head, with a transparent skin. The head was zoomed in a bit, showing black voids in his eyes. It now stated that he now had 40 badges. I then backed out and checked my Pokemon. They were all level 20 Shiny Unknown, which, when spelled out, read, No More. I was at what I now know is next to the end. There was apparently no music playing, but for some reason I still felt like something was there that could be heard. I was back in my room in New Barktown. Maybe finally I'd get to play the game normally. But who am I kidding? I knew that sadistic fuck must have done something. I walked around my room to interact with things, as I'm a bit afraid to go down the stairs to see what was waiting down there. No, I said walked, as while the background was moving, Gold was not moving its transparent limbs at all while doing so, just like those floating ghosts you see in Diamond and Pearl. As expected, the radio, computer, and TV did not work, so I had no choice but to go down the stairs. I ended up in the same lower level of my house. Everything appeared normal, except Mom wasn't there. After failing to interact with anything in the room, I decided to go outside. To my surprise, the door leading outside to the south didn't work, and instead I just walked straight through it to a void. I continued moving south to see what the fuck was going on. My house vanished as I head south into the void. It was creepy as when I entered the void, the outlines of Gold's transparent sprite turned white to contrast with the pitch black background. Eventually I reached a white area and Gold's sprite turned black and transparent again. I continued south without thinking of stopping at all. After a long trek south, I finally encountered something. It was Gold's regular sprite. I talked to it, and he said, "Goodbye, forever," notably with a space in between the forever and ... and vanished. As that happened, it said, "? Use Nightmare?" Which was at that point, I was not denying that being possible. Gold did another escape rope animation, spinning slowly downward like before. I'm now back in that small hollowed out room surrounded by graves earlier, or at least I say I was back there, as there's no sprite anymore. I tried to walk around, but nothing moved, not even wall bumping noises. I checked my trainer profile with absolutely no Gold sprite left. It said I had 0 badges and all the pictures of the Johto gym leaders at the bottom were replaced with skulls. I checked my Pokemon, which were all level 25 unknown. As expected, it spelled out a phrase I dared to read. I'm dead. As soon as I went back to the overworld, The room I supposedly was in was then covered with the same blocks as the walls. I then figured out what exactly the room was when the final text said R.I.P. That room was a big grave, surrounded by other graves. Gold had already been dead. He died presumably a few years after he defeated Red. He was a young trainer who, despite his efforts in collecting so many badges and attempting at becoming a Pokemon Master, was still unable to avoid the inevitable fate of death, and his efforts were eventually forgotten by the next generation. I was unable to escape from that text no matter what I pressed. I tried resetting the game and the same thing happened, as which I then finally decided to give up on that horrible nightmare. After that experience, I will never look at the gimmick unknown the same way again. They say that only the first generation have folktales and legends, but the second generation have shown me how unpleasant the truth can be. I eventually enjoyed Soul Silver immensely, but I still can't unthink what that rigged game has told me.